Hey there, creepy peeps, and welcome to another Weird Wednesday video. Today we're going to be continuing our horror discussions. I've posted like one or two of these now, horror discussion videos where we're going to talk about topics in terms of the horror genre. I want to start off with a little disclaimer for this video. The purpose of this video, which is a reaction to a post one of my fellow classmates posted in my horror film class. I just want to say that I'm not here to drag this person. I'm not going to roast her. I got that out of my system on my Instagram story when I first saw it, if any of you saw it on my Instagram, because I did that because I knew it would disappear and I just wanted to get it out of my system. So I'm not here to roast her. I think despite how misguided her essay is, I think it brings up an interesting topic in horror and something that is still talked about to this day. It's something that nobody has ever really, I feel like, been settled on. Every time something tragic happens, like a shooting, this comes up again. So let's just get right into it. I'm going to kind of divide this video into three parts. The first being the context of this person's post. I'm not going to say her name. I'll just refer to her as this girl, this student, whatever. I'm not going to say her name. So I'll give you the context of the post. I'm going to give you my own kind of opinions on the matter, and then I'm going to kind of address some of the things that she claimed as fact in her essay. So I'm going to go ahead and put the essay up right here. I'm not going to read it all as it is, somewhere around 500 words. That's the requirement for our discussion posts. So it's up right now. So you can pause and read if you'd like. Take a few deep breaths before you read it. She makes a lot of very, very serious accusations on the horror genre and Scream in particular. So you can pause that and read if you'd like, or if you're a really fast reader, maybe you read it already while I'm talking. So, right, the context of this. So I've had this person in a few of my classes before, and she is definitely prone to giving her opinion on things if she doesn't agree with maybe a theme in one of the movies we're watching, or if she doesn't agree with another student, what they posted. She tends to get very argumentative and doesn't provide any support for her arguments. It's basically just, you're wrong because you don't have my opinion. That's what I glean from it anyway. Again, I don't know this person personally. I just know of her in the context of these classes that we've shared. So throughout this horror class, she made it very apparent that she does not like the horror genre at all. And this post, which this was the last discussion post that we did for this class, Scream was the last required movie that we watched. This was the worst out of all of them. She does not talk about the film at all. And for those of you that don't know, I'm currently getting my master's in film studies. Film studies, not film critique, not film reviewing. The point of this class is, or the point of this course is not to review film. We're not talking about our opinions at all. We are discussing film. And she constantly gives her opinion. I don't know how she has made it this far. She must be getting awful grades, or I hope she is. So this was by far the worst one that I'd ever seen her post in all the classes we had. So I'm just gonna kind of tell you right now my initial opinions on this. And a lot of my opinions on this you can find in my other horror discussion video on mental illness and horror. Am I pointing in the right? I don't know. It pops up on one of these. I think it's on this side. I think I've been pointing over here. It's over here, I think. I don't know. But I talked about that in my horror discussion video on horror and mental illness, which I was kind of inspired by the backlash that Split got. So you can watch that. I have a lot of the same opinions. I feel like the media tends to use the influence of horror movies in their headline, and a lot of people don't actually click in and read the articles. They just read the headlines and they're thinking, oh, such and such horror movie inspired this killer. When you go and read it, at least most of the articles I've read on situations like this acknowledge that it is many other factors that have to do with why people do the things that they do, why these tragedies occur. Even like probably like the worst, even probably the worst, most biased news sources I've read don't even acknowledge it's solely the horror film or solely the video game that inspired somebody. They always acknowledge that it's a combination of other factors, and I think that is 100% true. And I think a lot of it has to do with our inability to acknowledge mental illness or admit maybe when something is seriously wrong with a person. And we tend to err more on the side of, oh, blame the movies, oh, blame the lack of gun control, blah, 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 blah. So that's kind of just my initial thoughts on it. And obviously I'm biased in the other direction than this student, me loving horror movies and Scream being my favorite movie of all time, which I found particularly funny reading her post because I was wearing my Scream shirt and I was like, I get to respond to everyone talking about Scream. This is great. And then I read her post and I'm just sitting here like, okay. And let me just point out too, she did not offend me in any way. I don't know her personally. I don't care about her. I don't, her opinion means nothing to me. So she didn't offend me. In fact, I found it quite funny. Right, so those are kind of my quickie opinions on it. I will respond to all your comments in the comment section down below, so you can like, I'll share my opinion a bit more, but I could go on forever about what I think about this situation and I don't want to go on too long. So to address some of the things that she claimed in her essay, she mentions a few shootings, killings, murders that apparently have been inspired by Scream. One of them being the Gainesville Ripper, which she mentioned inspired Scream, which Kevin Williamson was inspired partly by the book that was written on the Gainesville Ripper, which I cannot remember what the title is. I'll put it up here. He was inspired partly by that to write Scream. Again, other factors come into play, mental illness, things like that. Also, the Gainesville Ripper has been quoted saying he was inspired by Ted Bundy and the fame that Bundy got from the media, and he wanted that as well. So I think the student in question was a little misguided, saying that when she mentioned that Rolling, the Gainesville Ripper, was inspired by Bundy. I think she's a little misguided. I think maybe she should direct some of her frustrations on the media and their ability to give people like Ted Bundy fame, in a sense, by continually covering their lives on anniversaries of convictions and stuff. There's tons of articles posted. There's articles posted on a regular basis about Charles Manson. Like, I think she was a little misguided. I think maybe she should have directed some of her focus on the media's attention of some of these tragedies and how that inspires other people. She also mentions two killings that actually were inspired by the Scream movies. One of them being in 1998, the other in 1999. She mentions one of them where the judge, she says like the judge says you couldn't call it the Scream killings. The judge dismissed the mention of the Scream movies in the courtroom, so neither side was able to use the Scream films in their argument. I wasn't there for that trial. I don't know. I couldn't find anything as to why the judge dismissed it. I'm sure he had a good reason, or she had a good reason for dismissing it. Either way, I mean, it's inconsequential now. Like, there's no going back to that. The other one, the Scream attackers, I think they called them, also mentioned that there were drugs involved, and one of, if not both of the killers, attempted killers. I think if I was reading correctly, the victim actually survived, I think. Don't quote me on that. They admitted to their drug dealer being a huge influence on their killings as well, which the student failed to acknowledge. She also mentions Michael, is his name Michael DeGrude, who stabbed 5 of his classmates at a party. She also mentions her apparent own personal connection to one of the victims. It's like something like her cousin's friend or something like that. I don't know, something stupid. She mentions a couple times in her essay that DeGrude was inspired by the Scream movies, which I found no evidence of that whatsoever. In fact, I couldn't find any mention of any horror movies inspiring him. He did mention like he thought he was killing werewolves and vampires, which I guess kind of alludes to horror movies, but there's absolutely no mention of a specific horror movie, horror movies, or Scream at all. And she mentions this multiple times as fact. I just want to point that out. It is not a fact. And then she mentions how Columbine was also inspired by horror movies like Scream also, which again, there is no basis for that argument. I could not find any proof of that. In fact, there's really no mention of horror movies inspiring the 2 boys that killed all those students in Columbine at all. In fact, probably the biggest scapegoat that I can, that obviously I can remember from the news coverage and that I found upon researching further was video games and music. There's really no mention of horror movies at all inspiring them. So already her argument does not hold water. Basically, I'm gonna throw up here her sources for for her arguments. My problem is 2 of them were Wikipedia, which again was I was kind of saddened by. At a graduate level, you know, she thought that Wikipedia would be okay to cite as a source, which I mean, high schoolers even know that you can't use Wikipedia as a source. And of course, the other biggest problem I have with her essay is she states her opinions as facts, like DeGrude was inspired by Scream, which is 100% false. There's no even allusion to that in any article that I found. Same with the Columbine massacre. No, I don't think there's any proof on that. So that's my biggest thing. Clearly she's just very biased against horror movies. Yeah, and I will point out that none of my classmates responded to her. I think one person did a 1-sentence kind of just yeah, horror movies can be gruesome, and that was about it. And just to end off the video, I'm gonna go ahead and list a few non-horror movies that have also supposedly inspired crimes. I'm not gonna go into detail on what crimes they inspired. I gave this list about as much care as she did in her essay. I didn't research it too deeply, but Project X was one, which didn't actually inspire a specific crime, but it has been cited a lot for making dangerous party culture look cool. The Town, Fight Club, Natural Born Killers, Money Train, Backdraft, First Blood, and The Dark Knight. None of which are exclusively horror movies. Some of them aren't even close to horror movies, and they have actually inspired real crimes as well. So I'll just leave you with that. So of course, let me know in the comment section down below what you think about this. Let me know what you think about this kind of topic in general, like horror movies being blamed for crimes and being, the influence of these horrible tragedies. Let me know your thoughts on that. I'll be looking forward to reading all of those and responding to them. So thank you so much for watching this video. I will also mention thank you so much for putting up with my sporadic uploading the past week and a half. I get a little bit of break before I start my thesis paper, which I think just the whole month of writing my thesis will be kind of a lighter load compared to a lot of my other classes, because I'll just be focusing on that. So I'm back. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, stay strange. Bye.